Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Today's topic is ice baths and clearing trauma. And, it's interesting. This episode is going to be really about my experience and what I've been playing with for the last week. Today was day 7 of getting in. They call it ice bath. There's no ice, so it's just a cold bath. It's probably like high 40s, like between 48 and 52 is where it's been sitting, but it still does the job. And so looking forward to sharing the breakdown of this, but it's something that, I'd done like one other ice bath before, and it was a super intense experience for me. I didn't stay in it long enough for my nervous system to adjust. It was just kind of a surviving it and then got back out again, super invigorated. Like I did breath work while I was in there and it blew things open for me. But it wasn't a trauma release experience. And what I've done for the last 7 days has been. And so really excited to share about what that looked like, kind of the story rolling up to it and the breakdown of it. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you, David. Good morning. I was there for that one ice bath.
Yeah, which I just did breath work in and like a lunatic, and just my energy blew out. I don't think I slept that next night because it was like my energy was so amped from being in that intensive an experience. But I never let my nervous system relax. I didn't reach that point where I got past my breath and was able to just settle
Relax
in and actually, be aligned and present in it. It was all just amped system.
So that's been, I think you said today is day 7 with the ice bath. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you've gone past the, we'll call it initial shock.
Yeah, well, it'll be really interesting as I share like the breakdown. But have you done other ice baths or just the one that we did?
I haven't, and I didn't do that one either.
You didn't? I thought you did that. No, your finger was infected, right? So you couldn't do it.
I had a PICC line, and I didn't want to get in the water. Yeah.
Oh yeah, your cat stories. That's a whole nother story. But, well, you got to plan a trip up here, but you have to stay for a week because it's important to do it for maybe 21 days. Actually, is probably how long you should stay because that's how long it'll take.
Sounds very cold.
So here's the thing, right? Like I've been getting hits about ice baths for years, and it's terrified me, honestly. Like anything I've ever done with my spiritual development work, like crazy things happenings from UFOs showing up to like, having these intense energetic experiences I didn't know if I would survive, out in the desert by myself. Things I've shared some of these stories on here. Like none of them were that ultimately scary for me, even when it felt like, am I going to survive this? Ice baths were way scarier for me, which is so interesting. I just couldn't wrap my head around, like, why is this so terrifying? And so my whole life getting in water that wasn't like bath water or warmer, I would hyperventilate. Like I would get in, it would be, then I didn't understand it this way, but the reality was the experience of the temperature of the water hitting my body was in control. And it would just rip through my system, and I would actually get the wind knocked out of me. And my experience of getting in like a lake or the ocean was I had to just be not comfortable, but okay with getting the wind knocked out of me so that I could just like literally, if you've ever had the wind knocked out of you, that was the literal experience. And, I was so busy having the experience, I didn't realize that it was other people weren't having that same experience. And I was like, man, it's amazing how people love to get in the lake or the ocean because it's just such an intense entry. Not realizing, again, like quite often when we have these very different internal experiences, we may not even realize that other people around us aren't having the same experience. And, something like that was so obvious, you'd think I would have picked up on it. Never did. Just thought for some reason I couldn't quite get ahead of it, but other people could. Or maybe they were having, and so I remember I was teaching. So this would have been maybe 14 years ago. And I took a bunch of kids. We were on a trip in Lake Powell. We studied Lake Powell and we spent a week on a houseboat there. And we decided to go swimming. We actually had a boat too, so we were going wakeboarding. So I jumped off the back of the boat to go wakeboarding. And when I hit the water, I did my normal hyperventilation. And I remember my students were sitting there on the boat looking at me laughing, going, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just adjusting to the water. And they're like, and I'm like, nobody else is doing this. This is me doing this. Just having teenagers laugh their ass off at you was super effective in realizing I'm having a different experience than other people.
Yeah.
And I remember like, oh shit, okay, this is more intense for me than other people. And I always just said, well, like I'm, hypersensitive. My nervous system's hyperreactive. I have all this awareness. That just must be it. I didn't really link it with trauma, and I'm sure there's truth to the idea. Those of us that are, super empathic, super, finely tuned, like we have an experience. But the idea that the external world can overwhelm us and own our internal world, is a really intense thing.
When you say trauma, like were you thrown into a lake when you were a child, or what? Like,
I have a memory of my dad throwing me in being at Cape Cod and him throwing me in a wave that was breaking and getting spun and held underneath it. And that, when the first time in a wave, you don't understand that you just have to like relax and let it pass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had none of that understanding. I just knew that I was being held under and was trying to get up and couldn't. So I have that memory, but I don't know that. I think there's more to it. I think there's other traumatic experiences in my life from, I know I've been through a lot of trauma, and traumatic experiences that are, things happening outside of your control that are affecting your inner world is really the theme, right? Like there's something happening that's bigger than you. You're being overpowered.
So it's less about the cold water than it is about something else. Right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And I'm really curious to hear. I'd love to hear other people's experiences as I share this. And so I was putting those together. And so that time at Javad's when we did the ice bath, like it was a big deal for me. Like I remember I don't remember this. We all went to the restrooms to go get our bathing suits on. And I went and I grabbed my wetsuit out of the truck as a joke and came back out. I'm like, all right, I'm almost ready with my wetsuit, which was kind of a semi-joke. And Javad's like, get out of here. That's not what an ice bath is. But I think
also it wasn't a full wetsuit. It was a spring suit cut off at the arms and legs, which
it was a shorty. So in my own defense,
I would fail it for the opposite reason Javad failed it for.
That's not a wetsuit. Come on. So that joke was kind of like not really a joke, but a joke. And I just wanted to see Javad's face when I walked out with my wetsuit. It's like, that is not what we're doing here. But anyways, it was something that always, like when it came up, like I'd get this very clear feeling I needed to do it. But it was also, like I said, scarier than any other experience that I'd had. Do things like jumping off of a platform with a rope or like, high ropes courses, like, all those things were like, I wouldn't think twice about it. It was just like, okay, I'm deciding to do this. I'm doing it. Same thing with all these spiritual experiences that have been crazy intense. I'm deciding to do it. I'm doing it. And for some reason, this has just been like, this is bigger than me. And I haven't been able to figure it out because it's really the only thing in my life that I've come across that's felt bigger than me. And it's not an act of bravery. It's like this, like, I feel like I could die if I do this, even though it's not logical at all. So I have to erase that. But what is this feeling that I can't explain that feels like I could die if I do this, but I know I couldn't die if I do this? And so it was like this just unresolved terror feeling. It just sat there. And I'm like, what? Like, this is just such a weird experience.
So can you die doing this? Can you physically have people die doing this? I feel like that's a real big question.
No, it's an outrageous, like there's no, I mean, I guess if somebody has a heart attack or something, but that's not my case. It was a very clear feeling of like, this is an illogical feeling, so I'm not going to give it to myself, but it also isn't going away like it normally would if I said, that's not going to happen, David, do this. There was like just this sheer, like this, like it was basically like going into a traumatic situation where you knew something horrible was going to happen to you and you just couldn't control it and you were going to step into it, is what it felt like. Like, I'm going to go in here and something horrible is going to happen to me. And that's just going to be my experience. And so the idea of choosing that, right, even though it's for your own good, like and it's a weird thing to explain because when you're dealing with trauma, it's not logical. It's not like, oh yeah, well, the water's cold, your body will adjust, you breathe deeply, you'll gain control over it. There's something non-logical happening, and there's something experiential with your nervous system where it's having almost like an allergic reaction to the water. It's really what it feels like. It's like an allergic reaction because it's not.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, that's right. So you witnessed it, right? Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah.
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 After seeing you do it, I was like, I'm not unhappy with my decision today.
That's right. I forgot you couldn't do it. But again, I'm not a good reference point for this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you watch Javad do it, and
Yeah.
Javad just goes and dunks his head, comes back up again. He's like, I'm like, that's not my experience, right?
Yeah. I mean, I associate that water temperature with a wetsuit and boots and,
Hoodie?
like that's, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gloves.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it was like I'm having an allergic reaction. Is what it feels like. That's going to kill me. And so it's interesting. We were at Costco like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and they had like a blow up, almost like a paddleboard type blow up bath. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that. And I looked at it, and I'm like, fuck no. And I'm like, had this very clear knowing of like I'm supposed to do this, and a very quick human response to no, right? And so I sat there in front of it, and then we walked around, did the rest of the shopping, left out in the parking lot. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to go back in and get that. And I kept getting this hits, and then I'm like, oh, too late. Costco just closed. Can't do it. We went home. The next day I woke up and I'm like, I went for a run, and I'm like, the whole time it was just coming back in. I'm like, you have to do this. I'm like, fuck. And so we went back to Costco, got it, brought it home, sat it by the door to the backyard, and for 2 days, stared at it, went and blew it up, set it up. The next morning I got up and I'm like, all right, like I gotta do this. And so I went out, and like I hadn't gotten in the sauna yet. So I'm like, well, let me try it without the sauna. I got in like just up to my knees and started to lower down. And I was like hyperventilating. It was way ahead of me. And I was like getting the wind knocked out of me. I'm like, I'm going to get in the sauna first. And like, I'm like, am I just delaying this? Am I just playing out this drama inside myself? So sat in the sauna for like 10 minutes, went back out, and then just got in and dunked like all the way down to like basically to my belly button, and like got the wind out, knocked out. I mean, I realized by doing this intentionally, there was something else that was happening. Like my whole skin like tightens on my body. And I thought it was just, you put your skin in cold water, it contracts. But I realized it wasn't that. It was like this feeling where it was like everything just became constricted. Like I couldn't breathe. It felt like an allergic reaction. Like it was on my throat closing in, my face. And it's like it tightens to the point where it's like probably the second worst pain I've ever felt. Like I was in a motorcycle accident and had a nerve exposed. And I remember the doctor hitting the nerve as he was stitching me back up. And I was like, teach me a lesson to never ride a motorcycle again was his theory. But I'm like, that like was blinding pain. And this was close to that. And I'm like, this makes no sense. But I realized it was like I literally felt like there was just these strands of whatever running through my body that were just squeezing me everywhere. And it was like I could feel it in my spinal column. It was just like this tightening. And like I couldn't function really. And that was, just up to my waist. Right. And so I slowly lowered down, just again, couldn't get ahead of my breath that first day, up to my shoulders, just below my shoulders. I had my arms out. And I was like jumped out, ran back, got in the sauna. And I'm like, all right. This, like, I got to do it again tomorrow. And
you are selling this ice bath thing.
Well, I mean, here's so I think, yeah, like everybody ready? You guys want to join me? And so the second day I get in, and when I dunked my body in, like I dropped my knees first and basically brought the water up to my belly button. That feeling didn't happen in the rest of my body. Like it had actually moved through, and I still had to hyperventilate a little bit, caught my breath pretty quickly. And at that point, there was no sense of being choked out. There was no sense of this constriction, this allergic reaction, until I started to go a little bit lower past, to basically to my shoulders where I hadn't been. And each time I hit the point where I hadn't been yet, it would come back. And so, I worked through that each day. And here was the big part of it too, was when it would come in, I had to like sit there and breathe until I could breathe normally again and my nervous system relaxed. And then that was gone the next day. And so each day I've gone in a little bit deeper. Yesterday I tried to dunk my head completely, and when I went under, like I sucked in water because it was that same response. And so today when I went and I stayed under, and I just did really quick short dips of my mouth underwater, and same thing, I had to like bring it back up again before I inhaled, because it was like just this compulsive, like I couldn't not. And so then got my neck under my spinal column, back of my head, really basically just up to where just my mouth and nose were sticking out. and getting to the point where today I can almost breathe normally when my head was under, but I can go all the way up to my neck now and breathe normally and not have the constriction feeling until it hits basically my spinal column. And the difference, like when I got out of the bath the first time, like I went back and sat in the sauna and just had this crazy emotional outburst, just like, you know, like crying and just like the kind you can't stop. It was just like, and you have no idea what it's connected to. It was just like this release. And so I've had that like 3 of the days, you know, each time I'm submerged in a new area, it's like just been this crazy, you know, emotional release that I don't know what's connected to. And it doesn't matter. It's just moving it through my nervous system. And so really fascinating, right? And what I realized is that this is this feeling of I'm actually bigger than my surroundings. My surroundings don't get to push through me. They don't get to be bigger than me. They don't get to overrun me. I can actually handle this. And when we have a trauma that is related to our surroundings being bigger than us, something being inflicted on us, I think there's a real link to that. And I can't imagine that I'm the only one experiencing that. And that's why I think it's valuable to share on here is, you know, the tool of the ice bath as this nervous system reset and this getting ahead of yourself so that you're bigger than your environment. And I feel like I'm bigger than my environment almost always, but water, like when it came to that, like it could overrun me in an instant, which I still scuba dive. You know, I still, you know, I've done a little bit of, I don't know if we can call it maybe surf training. I won't call it surfing. But, you know, and again, it was terrifying, pushed under by these waves, but just like, I don't care. I'm going to go do this. But when it became unprotected, like with the wetsuit, without the wetsuit, like it just was like an allergic reaction until it's not. And then my nervous system like has felt so good. Like the first day after I did it, like I laid down on the rug in front of the fireplace and just felt like a little kid just laying there, like taking a nap. Like I was so relaxed. I think I just dozed off for a little bit, or maybe even just laid there, like fully, like my nervous system just like,
So is it water or is it cold water?
Cold water. Yeah. Warm water doesn't bother me at all. Like I can go down to, you know, Gulf of Mexico or wherever and just walk in. Like, yeah. Or Hawaii. Yeah. There's zero response to that.
Yeah. That sounds way more fun.
Yeah. But the whole point of this is not enjoyment, right? Like, and that's what I was saying. Like, God, I've been through so many experiences that are, you know, people would be terrified by that weren't that terrifying to me. That were just like, I trust this. But for some reason, this experience has just been like with cold water. It literally, it's like an allergic reaction. My nervous system just tells me, like, you know, like this is going to kill you. And my brain's going, no, it won't. Nervous system's like, I don't care what you say.
And in fairness for everyone listening, the internet may tell you it's going to kill you too. Just so you know, like do your own
does
research.
It say that? Does it say that ice baths will kill you?
If you have let's see, undiagnosed heart condition triggered, a gentleman died in 2023 because they have this undiagnosed heart condition that was triggered by the cold water immersion. So
yeah, so there's our disclaimer, right? So
for everyone,
consult your physician before.
That's right.
Yeah. So, you know, fascinating. So I explored some of these different experiences I'd had, and it didn't feel like I've had a lot of, like when I did my scuba certification, I had a really scary experience, which, you know, was, I mean, it's kind of a fascinating story. So we were on Lake Skinny Atlas in New York, which was cold water, had the full wetsuit with the hood and everything. And when we did our certification, we were down on this, we had to go dive down and you sit on this grate on the bottom there. It was like 20 feet under. And you had to do like these different drills. One of them was out of water drill. And so, or out of air drill. We didn't run out of water. Of course, maybe makes sense why I called it that when I tell you the rest of the story. And so it was an out of air drill. And so my partner went first. He signaled that he was out of air. He drops his regulator, what you breathe out of. And I hand him mine, take it out of my mouth, put it in his mouth, and I grab my secondary regulator and put it in my mouth. So we do that. He breathes it. And then, you know, we get reset, and I signal that I'm out of air. So I drop my regulator. He takes his regulator and puts it in my mouth like we're supposed to. And then I'm breathing it. And just as I exhale, he pulled it back out of my mouth because he couldn't find his secondary.
Oh.
And so I was completely on exhale, out of air, 20 feet under. And I'm like, so like it shocked me, and I sucked water in when he pulled it out of my mouth because I was just starting to inhale again. And so I'm like water in my lungs, 20 feet under, and I'm like flailing around trying to find my primary or my secondary regulator, get it, grab it, put it in my mouth, and I'm coughing water out through the regulator.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, as soon as he grabbed his regulator, he took off for the surface and left me there by myself. But then actually I wasn't by myself. The instructor was there watching it. And so like we go to the top and I'm come up and I'm, coughing water out. And he's like, oh, you did really good. Way to not panic when he took off on you. And somehow they still passed that dude for his, so he's a certified, hopefully he's not an instructor out there somewhere, but that doesn't feel like it was related to it. It was like, that was experience was like, well, that was scary, but I was okay, And it's funny to me that getting in a bath is scarier than what happened that day. Bizarre. That actually was super dangerous. That actually could have killed me.
It was.
This was just like an allergic reaction. So with all that, like, well, what's the point of doing this? Well, my nervous system, like this sense of like how powerful I feel to hold my own space. Like it was something that was always something it took so much intention and effort for me that feels like it's a whole new way of doing it, like a whole new ease, I should say.
So you're going to do it. You're going to continue to do it. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's great. I actually look forward to it every morning now. And I'm actually like when I'm trying to get that, like today when I put my head under, I was like trying to get that feeling again of the constriction, because I know that when I feel that and I can breathe through it, that's when I get the release. Yeah. And so everything I was trying to avoid before, now I'm like trying to find the spot inside me where I can get my body in deep enough and cold enough that it's going to trigger it again, because each time I trigger it, it clears it. And so it's not scary anymore. It's like, it's crazy intense, but it's only like in the top of my head now. It's not anywhere else in my body, where before it was my whole body that just seemed to be having an allergic reaction.
Got it. I mean, there's a couple of things that have similar type of payoffs. I mean, different, but also similar, like the runner's high, sometimes plant medicine, meditation. Mm-hmm. There's a period where like it doesn't really feel great. You're putting in the effort, doesn't feel great. And then you get over that hump.
Yeah, like puking on plant medicine.
Yeah, or just distraction and meditation, or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And then you're in a different place because you put the time in, you put the training in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taking like plant medicine was way less scary to me than this. Like it wasn't even in the same scale. And I remember being like intense and like kind of this excitement and this kind of overwhelm and the scariness to it, and be like, okay, first time I did it. And then even the second time, I'm like, well, it could be different this time. Who knows what I'm going to be confronted with? All those things that we think about. But it was like, on this scale, it would have been a 1 out of 10. And this was a 10. And so it's really interesting. I had no idea. And that's why I wanted to share it, because I knew it was something I needed to do. And I knew for some reason it was the one thing I was putting off in all of my spiritual development stuff that I've ever come across. It's paid off in massive ways. And really, it's also resulted in me holding my energy a lot cleaner, easier too. Like I don't have to work so hard at it. And other people's energy, even though Aligned Living's all about holding your own space, it still took a lot of effort for me. And this now, it takes the efforting away. It's just like, no, I'm not letting that in. Kind of like the bath. And it's funny, growing up, my bedroom and my brother's bedrooms were connected. Like you went through the hallway, went to my room, and then to my brother's room. So he had a throughfare to walk through my room to get to his room. And like I kept being shown that, and it felt like that, like the world gets to walk through here to get to there, like this, like. And I remember being so upset about it as a kid, and my parents were like, his room's there. That's like he gets to walk through your room whenever he wants on his terms, and you don't get to have your door shut. Like it's not your space, it's his space. And that just being the reality of it, right? And logistically it was, but really interesting. What does that signature do to us in our field and in our understanding of how the world works? And so, I think that was the arena of the trauma of like, yeah, people can trespass against you, and you have to be okay with it because that's just how it is. Yeah, really fascinating. And
that's cool.
Yeah. So I guess you're next then, Nick. So what is it like for you when you get in cold water, like without a wetsuit?
I mean, I don't get in without a wetsuit.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing.
Yeah. When was the last time you got in water without a wetsuit that was cold?
It was probably 20 something. It was the summertime. It was June. It was in Jersey. Mm-hmm. And without thinking about how cold the water was, I thought it can't be that cold still. It's June.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just ran and I jumped in, and it was cold. It was
What'd you
very
do?
cold water.
Did you just have to breathe deeply? Was it more powerful than you, or were you more powerful than it?
I was very surprised or shocked. I'm not quite sure what. And I mean, I got up. It was like waist high water, right? Like it wasn't deep at all. But when I dove in, or when I flopped in, you didn't dive into the bottom, just sort of belly flop. I just remember being cold and shocked about it being that cold, and I didn't stay in there very long. It wasn't enjoyable. And after that, I don't remember what I did. Probably put on a wetsuit and then paddled out if there was service.
Yeah. So this was one of 2 episodes on this. The second one we're going to do is on Nick's experience with ice baths. And
Great.
And so we got
as you were
right
talking,
now it's on sale at Costco for I think it's like $150 as opposed to $200.
Yeah, I was just there yesterday. They were all out.
Were they? Shit.
Yeah, I didn't see one.
It's funny because I talked to a client yesterday who lives in Carlsbad, and they said that they actually had them in stock and they were going to get one.
Sorry.
Actually, you know what? They used Instacart and they had it delivered at their house by 3:00 that afternoon.
I don't have access to Instacart. So.
No, I think we all do. So is this a one of one episodes? Is that what you're telling me? Isn't it interesting though? So what are you experiencing right now as we kind of confront you with doing it? Like what's going on for you of like,
as you were talking about like we're on a scale of 1 to 10 or what was scarier, I'm like, I'm comparing this to skydiving, which I've done. I didn't enjoy it, but I've done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is below skydiving.
Okay, cool. Well,
yeah.
Well, since you've done skydiving,
which I wouldn't want to do again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am curious of it.
I'm super curious. I think we need to run an experiment to see how it does, what happens with your nervous system when you do it and your ability to regulate and claim your own space at another level.
Here's my problem. Among other problems.
And so for listeners, this is why Nick's not going to offer you this insight into this experience. So I'm sure it's a great reason why he's not helping you out.
We'll see.
Go ahead.
We'll see. But here's my problem is that I'm well aware of cold water.
Yeah.
Like I've been in it multiple times. I've been flushed with it. I've experienced very cold water.
Yeah.
On my own terms, with the wetsuit and a surfboard and so I know the discomfort of the cold water.
Yeah, but what if like it literally stopped being uncomfortable? Like it started being comfortable. Like in a weird like way. Like it was like, I realized that like I looked at the clock. I was in there for 5 minutes today. I didn't mean to be. Like I was just really sitting in it, trying to get my head in a little bit further, seeing if I could get any more of that sensation to happen.
I get that. Yeah.
And it was like, and I got out and I'm like, oh shit, I was in there for 5 minutes working on that. And it stopped being uncomfortable. It was like exciting. It was like, I'm ahead of this shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm taking charge of something that's kicked my ass my whole life.
I mean, like when I've gotten tattoos, like at first you're like, oh my God, this thing hurts a lot. Right. The needle hitting the skin.
I kind of liked it.
And then I really enjoy it. Yeah. Then it's like therapeutic. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And even like the MRI machine, you get in there and it's banging and it's close and I don't want to be in there. And then I close my eyes and just relax into it. And then I'm like, it's not so bad.
Yeah. I've done all those things. And again, like those were 1 or 2. This is a 10 plus on that. Like it doesn't even match on that chart. And I remember like when I got my tattoo, I have a magician tattooed on my, arm. And when he did the inside of it, like he did both sides in the same day. So it was like a 4.5 hour sitting or plus. And I remember him going, he's like, you want to keep going? I'm like, yeah. And he's like working through, he's like, I work on a lot of the Broncos. Like, he's like, your pain threshold's crazy. I'm like, it doesn't hurt. I don't know. Like I would just kind of go into like a clean, clear space inside me. And I wasn't having a pain based experience. I was having like this is really cool. Like it forces me to be in a meditative state.
I think there should be a service where they actually don't tattoo you, but they use the needle. I mean, I think.
Yeah. I don't want another tattoo. I just want to be forced into a meditative state by being. Well, I mean, that's what like Sundance or that where they do the Sundance, the Native American, where they hang from hooks because it puts them, the excruciating pain actually puts them into a state of consciousness that becomes euphoric. That becomes like them connecting with God is their idea, and then they hang there for I don't know how long. Like with hooks through their skin, hanging from the hooks.
All right. You just sold me on the ice bath.
Yeah, see, so there you go. So I think you owe it to our listeners to share your experience.
It sounds great. It sounds great. Let's do it. It sounds great.
All right, so there may or may not be an episode 2 of this.
I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, and now I live in California. And so anyone who knows the differences between an East Coast yes and a California yes will understand what this means. It's 100% without a doubt a California yes.
So it's never going to happen. All right, got it.
It's a firm maybe. I'm committed to the maybe.
Yeah, and here's the thing about choosing this, right? It's never going to feel good until after you've done it. And in fact, it's going to be terrifying. It's going to be like, fuck, and that, like I said, like I sat there and stared at it in Costco, left and, went outside and let the store close. So I couldn't buy it, and then came back the next day and then let it sit next to the door to the patio or to the backyard for 2 days before. Like that's not me at all. Normally I'm like, okay, I decided it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to go home, set it up. I'm going to be in it in the morning and I'm doing this. And like to be like, put something like that off. Like I just don't do that. Like when I have something that scares me, like I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it. I make a decision.
Yeah, I get it. I want to do it. I want to try it.
I wasn't saying that for you. I was just saying that for people that are listening.
Yeah, my mental block is this doesn't make sense to get into this cold water without a wetsuit. Why would you do that to yourself?
What's the payoff? The payoff is resetting our nervous system and clearing any trauma that we're storing in our, not any, but clearing trauma we store in our body around the idea that the world we can be overpowered by things. And that's, to me, like that was what it was. It was like the times in life where I've been overpowered and out of control. Like it was crazy what that cleared for me. And like I feel a whole nother level of control in my life afterwards, which is shocking to me. With all the work that I've done, with all the stuff that, all the personal development and spiritual development and experiences, for this to be so profound is mind-blowing. That's why I wanted to share my story and what I experienced. And I'm curious to see what other people experience. And I think there's other people that get in it and just go, oh, this is good for my nervous system. I feel reset. But it depends on your history and your trauma and your sensitivity and all your nervous system, all those things. But I know for how many empaths, like tiptoe into the water and go, this is overwhelming. The outer world is overwhelming my inner world. And like, I think for empaths, this has got to be freaking amazing. And, a 10 out of 10 on the intensity level. Until it's not, then it's like, God, I'm in charge of this now. I'm bigger than this.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Nick's going to let us know. Thanks for that California yes.
Yeah, you got it. Anytime.
Yeah, bro. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, and we'll keep you posted. Feel free to egg Nick on. Have a great week.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.